If you ask a modern automaker how to build a capable off-roader, they will tell you it needs a massive hood, aggressive styling, and a dozen terrain management computers. But Japanese engineers built an off-roader shaped exactly like a delivery brick. It has the aerodynamics of a cinder block. The driver sits completely exposed directly over the front axle, and it looks like it belongs delivering parcels, not crossing rivers. Yet underneath this bizarre, top-heavy looking shell is a heavy-duty 4x4 system that allows this box to crawl through mud, snow, and steep trails that would leave a modern luxury SUV priced at $80,000 spinning its wheels. So how exactly did a strange Japanese commercial van become an unstoppable trail machine, and why are guys quietly ditching their modern off-roaders just to get their hands on one? Staring at the Nissan Caravan 4x4, the first thing that stops most people is the geometry. The driver's seat sits almost directly above the front axle with less than a quarter meter, just 0.22 meters, between your eyes and the center line of the wheel. That's closer than almost any other off-roader, and it gives a perspective more familiar to bus drivers than weekend trail enthusiasts. From the outside, the silhouette is all wrong for off-road work: a flat nose, vertical windshield, and the kind of boxy shape that looks like it should tip over at the first sharp turn. Yet a wheel cam mounted under the fender tells a different story. Instead of wobbling or threatening to topple, the Caravan tracks true over uneven ground, the wheels biting in exactly where the driver intends. Animation overlays show the center of gravity lower than the roofline would suggest, debunking the myth that this van is a rollover waiting to happen. The eye-to-axle measurement isn't just a quirk, it's a clue to how this so-called delivery box can outmaneuver and outclimb vehicles twice its price. The question is, why did Nissan's engineers choose this layout? And how did it end up defying every expectation of what an off-road machine should be? Nissan's truck division faced a clear directive in the late 1980s: deliver a van that could carry real weight and survive the punishing winters of Hokkaido. The design brief called for a payload rating of 800 kilograms and a gross vehicle weight of 2,650 kilograms, numbers more at home on a small lorry than a passenger van. But this was not just about hauling boxes. The Caravan had to start reliably at minus 30 degrees Celsius day after day for municipal fleets and ski resorts that could not afford downtime. Former Nissan engineer Toshiyuki Shimizu recalls those early test runs in Hokkaido where cold-soaked engines faced the dawn and snowbanks piled higher than the van's roof. "We built it for the people who keep the roads open," he says, describing a platform tough enough for snowplows, timber loads, and field repairs with only basic tools. The result is a vehicle whose mechanical honesty and commercial DNA are stamped into every weld and bolt, a van engineered not for showrooms, but for the hard, unseen work of winter, mountain, and rural life. A veteran fleet driver steps into the Caravan, hands resting on the big, flat steering wheel. Out on a winding service track, the difference becomes clear in seconds. With the cab-over layout, the driver's eyes are nearly level with the front tire. Instead of guessing where the rubber meets the ground, the driver waits, holding off on the turn until the tire itself comes into view. Only then does the steering input go in, and the van carves around a tight bend with millimeter precision. This visual first approach is not just a party trick, it is a learned skill that lets experienced hands place the wheels exactly where they want, avoiding rocks and ruts that would catch a lower-slung SUV. In snow or mud, that direct sightline means the driver can track the tire's progress over each obstacle, making micro-adjustments in real time. The result is a kind of mechanical confidence, one where human judgment and honest engineering work together, turning a boxy van into a tool that rewards skill and attention rather than brute force or electronic help. Beneath the slab-sided body, the Caravan 4x4 reveals its true character through its underpinnings. A pair of 115mm thick steel frame rails run the length of the chassis. Their box section construction borrowed straight from Nissan's mid-size truck line. These rails are not just for show, they are the backbone that lets the van shoulder an 800-kilogram payload and shrug off the kind of frame twisting ruts that would leave a lighter unibody van stranded. Cross members, each welded and gusseted, tie the structure together under the floor, forming a ladder frame that resists flex, whether the van is loaded with timber or crawling over broken rock. Factory-fitted steel skid plates shield the front differential, transfer case, and rear axle, all bolted directly to the frame with heavy fasteners. Mechanics point out that these plates are the same gauge and mounting pattern as those on the Nissan Frontier, making them easy to replace or reinforce. The axles themselves mount to leaf spring perches welded directly to the rails with no subframes and no rubber bushings to soften the blows. This is a skeleton built for work, not comfort. Every inch of the underside tells the same story. Durability came first, and every component was sized for real-world punishment rather than showroom polish. The gearbox specialist traces the force from the Caravan's 2.5-liter diesel engine, which produces 260 newton-meters of torque at 2,000 revolutions per minute. That torque is multiplied by the first gear's 4.00 ratio, then again by the transfer case's 2.05 to 1 low range, clearly marked on the Envy 251's metal tag. The 4.10 to 1 axle ratio finishes the sequence. Multiply these numbers and the result is 11,599 newton meters at the wheels before factoring in losses. This figure surpasses what many V8 sport utility vehicles deliver, and it is achieved entirely through mechanical means with no electronics and no software. The specialist notes that this chain, from clutch to axle, is designed for traction at low speeds, allowing the Caravan to climb muddy slopes under load with minimal wheel slip. Each gear and ratio is chosen for practical field work. If something breaks, the fault is visible and the repair is straightforward, often using parts shared with Nissan trucks. This analog system turns torque into real-world pulling power, gear by gear, wherever it is needed. A fleet mechanic kneels beside the Caravan, a battered toolbox open at his side. He is not surrounded by diagnostic laptops or specialty gear, just a handful of wrenches, a mallet, and a portable vise. The job today is a U-joint swap, the kind of repair that would sideline most modern SUVs for days. Here, it is a routine task. The mechanic removes the drive shaft bolts with a 12mm wrench, breaks loose the yoke with a 14mm wrench, and taps out the old U-joint with a 17mm socket. No air tools, no pit lift, just muscle and patience. Within 45 minutes, the new part is greased and fitted. The drive shaft goes back in, and the van is ready for another week of snow runs or timber hauls. This is not a staged demonstration. It is how rural fleets keep their caravans moving through winter. The entire repair can be done on the roadside in a blizzard with nothing more than the basic tool roll that fits under the passenger seat. For operators, this level of field serviceability is not just a convenience. It is the reason the Caravan racks up miles long after newer, more complicated vehicles have been towed away. Mechanical simplicity means uptime, and in these working environments, that is the only metric that matters. A tape measure runs from axle to axle, 3,020 millimeters, end to end. That is the Caravan's wheelbase, a figure that surprises even seasoned off-roaders. On paper, it is shorter than most modern pickups, yet just long enough to keep the van stable under load. An owner steps out, marking the turning circle with cones. The Caravan snakes through with room to spare, where a longer SUV would be forced to reverse. On tight forest trails or switchbacks, this compact footprint becomes a tactical asset. It lets the van pivot around obstacles, squeeze through narrow passes, and park in spaces where bulkier trucks simply will not fit. The numbers do not lie, wheelbase matters, and here, efficiency wins over excess. Out on the trail, the Caravan lines up beside a modern SUV, sleek, bristling with sensors, and carrying a price tag that could buy 3 of these old vans. Telemetry overlays track every slip and surge as both vehicles tackle the same muddy climb. The SUV's tires spin and dig, software hunting for grip, until its driver calls it quits and backs down for another try. Meanwhile, the Caravan inches forward, suspension flexing, gears meshing in low range. No drama, no blinking warning lights, just steady progress as the boxy van crests the rise and keeps moving. The owner, hands firm on the wheel, glances at the specialist. The specialist says, "That is what mechanical advantage looks like." Inside the moving Caravan, the reality of its workhorse roots comes through with every bump. The ride is stiff, the seat is perched just above the axle, and there is no mistaking the knees-to-dash driving position. An owner leans forward, hands gripping the wheel, and admits that you feel every rut. Comfort takes a back seat to getting the job done. Exposed metal, minimal padding, and basic controls remind you this van was not built for luxury. It was built to last. Today, as modern vehicles grow ever more complex and disposable, machines like this remind us that honest engineering and field-ready simplicity often outlast luxury. In a world chasing the latest upgrade, capability sometimes wears a humble face. Some classics are not just remembered, they are rebuilt, and they keep rolling.